Joe, I want to hear, okay? I want to hear some situations, maybe some stories of times where you've talked people out of those situations. And I hope it helps our listeners to know, hey, you know what? That could be me. Or maybe I have some questions. I'm going to reach out to Joe at nosolar.com. So, Joe, can you give us some situations?
So, Emilio, the first thing that, literally one of the first questions I ask somebody, and usually it's in a discovery call before I even get to their home, is, the biggest thing that should stop you from going solar is moving. And that's why, I don't send you too many referrals, Emilio, is because when I'm sitting with people, they're there for the long haul as far as I'm concerned, their plans for then. The first thing I ask is, where are you going to be in the next 2 to 3 years? If you're moving in the next 2 years, absolutely is not the time to go solar. Don't let anybody tell you that's the time for a lease. Unless you're buying a system cash because you have $500 a month electric bills, then yeah, you'll be able to resell it in 2 to 3 years and with the home as an asset. But if you're taking on financing, you need to have at least 3 to 5 years in the home to really, see your benefit and pay into that equity because essentially what you're doing is taking out a loan for the panels. You're swapping that electric bill. So if you're moving, that is definitely not the time. And that's the number one reason I will literally kick myself out of a client's home or just, disqualify the job right away. These reps out there that are knocking on your door promising sunshine and rainbows, well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of solar success stories. You can jump on the website anytime and hear some testimonials from CPAs, accountants that have actually had excellent experiences going solar. But
Yeah.
it's more of not like who, but situationally, how should you go solar? So, you deal with, selling the home. So when you're doing that, you're either looking at a lease that the next person has to assume. And a lot of these leases from especially 5 or 10 years ago, well, they had to be paid off before you could sell the house. And that can create cash flow issues for you, for the homeowner, and things like that. And that's where you hear a lot of these nightmare stories.
Do you have an idea how many years it takes for somebody to get a return on investment on the average system? And I know it's a loaded question because there's so many different variables there, but is
It's
there
pretty
kind of an
simple.
idea?
So essentially, when you're talking about a cash purchase, so somebody who's going to pay for the system right up front, they're going to see about a 6 to 7 year return on investment. And at that point, they've paid for the system and what their power bill was and what they've been paid for the system. It's eliminated and you're even. So from that seventh to really the 45th year, because these panels are lasting longer and longer nowadays with these awesome guarantees, they've got free power. They'll pay a $6 connection fee to the grid and a little tax at the bottom of the bill because we're never going to get away from that. But, that's where you've got a 6 year, 7 year ROI, and that's residentially. Commercially, we're seeing things at like 2 to 3 year return on investments, depending on the situation. Lots of big benefits for commercial. But you look at the return on investment for somebody who's going to finance the system. So essentially, you're taking out a loan or you're going to lease the system. Well, return on investment really is day one. I mean, you're going to save money day one. If I sit with you, you're 100% going to save money day one, unless you're adding a roof and, a couple of batteries and you're doing some other projects with that loan, which is possible. But if you're just looking at solar and you've got a good spot, you're going to save a significant amount of money day one. So, when you talk about return on investment, well, it's day one, and a lot of people are getting tax credits back if you have the liability, another big issue in this industry and something that would stop you from owning a system.
Nice. So what do like tax credits look like right now?
So your average tax credit is usually about, I'd say, 8 to 9 thousand. It's 30% of the total cost of the system. So when let's say you got a $30,000 system, about average in the industry right now, you got a $9,000 federal income tax credit. Now, here's the big thing with this tax credit, it's credit. So you have to have federal income tax liability to make that credit or to relinquish that credit. And that's where a big, I say one of the biggest problems with this industry right now is that these reps are running around telling people that have the bigger system, $70,000, $80,000 system, that they're going to just get a check back from the government for 20, 30 grand. Well, that's not going to happen unless you have 20, 30 grand worth of tax liability. That's one of the big things. And then these banks give you that. They basically float you your tax credit for 18 months and say, once you get it back from Uncle Sam, give it back to us and we'll keep that low monthly payment. Now you have the option to keep the tax credit as well, but your payment goes up on that 18th month if you keep it and haven't given it back to the bank for re-amortization. The first thing you should do once you sit down with a solar rep, I'm going to put it right out here for you. Go talk to your accountant. Call your accountant, whoever handles your taxes, and say, hey, listen, how can I relinquish this credit? Can I relinquish this credit? Is it going to take me 1 year? Is it going to take me 5 years? Those things factor in. And if a rep is pushing you to sign before you talk to your accountant, well, you're just probably not sitting with the right person, and you should do a little bit more research.